Oslo Plaza Hotel, which was a luxury 5-star hotel in Norway at the time. It was Saturday about 7:30 p.m. when a receptionist discovered that something was wrong. The Belgian couple staying in room 2805 were Jennifer and Lois Fergate, and they had far exceeded their credit limit. The receptionist sent a message to the room where the text appeared on the TV screen. It said, "Please contact the cashier." Someone in the room immediately acknowledged receipt by pressing OK on the remote control. It was an expensive room, costing in today's value about $330 a night. The receptionist then noticed that 2 similar messages had already been sent to the room. The guests have now spent 3 nights there and don't seem to have paid anything at all. The woman who signed in was Jennifer Fairgate, who is listed as 21 years old. The receptionist calls housekeeping, who tells her that nobody has cleaned the room since Thursday. All day Friday and Saturday, a do not disturb sign is hung on the door. The receptionist begins to sense trouble, and then alerts hotel security. 25-year-old Espen Naes has the night shift. He works as a security guard every 3rd weekend as a side job while studying. He takes the elevator to the 28th floor and reaches the room 2805 at 7:50 p.m. He knocks on the door. A second later, a bang comes from the room. The heavy door and concrete walls dampen the sound, but it still resonates. Espen flinches. He believes it to be a gunshot. Remembering that 2 people are staying in the room, he stands behind a small protrusion in the corridor and waits a few minutes. What should he do? He thinks to himself, if someone is shot, there must be someone else in the room with a weapon. He does have a 2-way radio, but doesn't want to broadcast to the whole staff. He makes a quick decision and heads to the elevator, takes it down to the reception, and rushes to the guard station, where he informs the head of security while dialing for the police. Are the guests in 2805 dangerous? He asks, but the police have no record of their names. The head of security takes the elevator up, approaches the room, and knocks once, twice, then a 3rd time. No response. At this point, the time is 8:04 p.m, and for 15 minutes, the room has been left unwatched. With his key card, he carefully unlocks the door and notices that it's double locked from the inside. That means only security staff can get in, not other employees. The manager opens the door slightly and notices a woman on the bed and a sour, acidic smell. It's dark and the TV is on. They wait outside for the police to arrive, which takes a further 30 minutes. Upon entering the room, the police find Jennifer lying on the bed, facing up and dressed in all black. She had a single bullet wound to the forehead and a 9mm Browning pistol in her right hand. Suicide was immediately suspected. However, they soon discover the very unusual circumstances surrounding her death. First, let's talk about the gun. The pistol in her hand was in a reverse grip with the thumb on the trigger and blood was everywhere. The bed linens and mattress were soaked. Back spatter was found on the pillow, telephone, the bedside table, and the wall all the way up to even the ceiling. In the autopsy report, the forensic pathologist writes, "There are no signs of back spatter or singeing on the hands." A professor of forensic medicine found it striking that there was no blood on her hands. He said, "We know there was powerful back spatter with the blood way up on the ceiling. The victim still had her thumb on the trigger and her fingers around the stock, so it's strange there is no blood traces on her hands." Some suicide victims also get scrapes or marks on their fingers from the recoil. In this case, there are no marks on the finger or the trigger. A 9mm pistol gives a very powerful recoil. Forensic technicians took samples from the skin of both hands using carbon tape. The tests revealed no sign of gunshot residue. The origins of the pistol could not be traced as the serial number had been scratched off. According to reports, the removal was done very professionally. Experts managed to recover parts of this, but remained 3 characters short of a complete serial number. On the floor beside the bed was a black leather attaché case, which is similar to a briefcase. Inside, the police found 25 live rounds and nothing else. A total of 34 cartridges were found in Jennifer's possession. Why would she need so many bullets for a suicide? There was also a partly eaten meal on the table and signs that a shower had been taken. The room is tidy and there is hardly any luggage to be seen. As the police searched the room, they could not find anything to identify Jennifer at all. No passport, driver's license, purse or keys. To make things even stranger, there were no toiletries, makeup or cosmetics, even though Jennifer was described as elegant and well made up. She was even wearing makeup when she was found dead. The only thing of this nature in the room was a bottle of men's cologne. Looking through the wardrobe, police found that all the logos and labels, with one exception, had all been systematically removed from every item of clothing. Some were snipped off stitch by stitch, others were cut away. The only clothing label left was on a grey blazer in the closet, which was from a German fashion brand, and it would be impossible to remove the label without cutting the lining. Even on the leather insoles of Jennifer's shoes, the manufacturer's name was gone, with only "Made in Italy" remaining, printed in gold. No other shoes were found. However, the maid who had cleaned the room 2 days before remembered seeing a pair of very nice heels on the luggage shelf that were not the same ones that Jennifer was wearing. There was also no underwear besides the pair she was currently wearing, nor were there any skirts or trousers. So there was nothing to ID Jennifer besides the information she gave on the hotel check-in form, which unfortunately was all false. The address she had written was in Belgium. When investigators notified the Belgian police, they could not find anyone under this name, and although the town, Verlaine, exists, the street does not. The phone number was not real, but the area code was valid for a nearby area. So Jennifer was somehow connected to this location. Exactly how, we don't know. There are 2 mysteries in this unsolved case. How did she die, and who is she? So let's rewind a bit more and go over what we do know. It was Wednesday, May 31st, when Jennifer checked into the hotel. The names registered by the hotel were Jennifer and Lois Fairgate. was not seen again and also remains unidentified. Somehow, there are no records of Jennifer presenting her credit card or any ID at check-in. Some staff were interviewed about this. It was speculated that she had checked in at a busy time, so this may have been missed. But one receptionist said, "It's incomprehensible to me. We had strict routines at the hotel. It just shouldn't be possible." What's more is that 2 days later, on Friday morning, Jennifer went down to extend her stay until Sunday, a second situation where a credit card may be needed. That sounded suspicious to me, almost like the hotel staff might have been in on it too, but that doesn't seem too likely. As one Redditor puts it, they said they didn't get ID because they were busy. I believe stays would be automatically extended if the person didn't check out. If she was let to check in because she looked trustworthy to the front desk agent, or she promised to return later, or maybe she said Lois would be arriving later to provide payment, then the extension would just be a matter of no one catching it until 3 days later. They go on to say, "I have worked in hotels for 6 years as a front desk agent. We have definitely gotten busy and made mistakes, then had to go attempt to collect payment or remove the person." So I don't know how it was in Oslo in 1995. Maybe it's similar to what this Redditor is saying, but it's all just speculation and there is no proof to indicate any hotel staff was in on it too. During her stay, no one recalls seeing Jennifer entering or leaving the room except once. Printouts from the hotel's locking system show that Jennifer's keycard was used only 5 times during the 3 days. However, the system only registers use of a card to enter a room, not the door being opened from the inside to exit. So let's go through the timeline according to the keycard usage. On Wednesday, May 31st, after checking in, Jennifer uses the card for the first time at 10:44 p.m. She or someone leaves and then enters again a little later at 12:21 a.m. On Thursday morning, the card is used at 8:34 a.m. Perhaps Jennifer had returned from having breakfast. Then a little before 1 p.m., the room was cleaned by the steward in charge of the 28th floor, accompanied by a trainee. When interviewed the following week, both women told police there was no one else in the room at the time. The door to room 2805 is not opened again, whether by employees or guests, until 8:50 a.m. on Friday. The previous time the door had been opened with Jennifer's card was 8:34 a.m. on Thursday. That means Jennifer left the room at some point between 8:34 a.m. and 12:44 p.m. and did not return until the next day, Friday, so the room was empty for between 20 to 24 hours. Where was Jennifer during this time? Friday is the last day that Jennifer is seen alive. The steward, Karen, recalls cleaning a nearby room when she saw Jennifer in the corridor. She said, "I offered a short greeting, good morning or something like that. She smiled and returned the greeting. Whether she was coming from the elevator or another room, I don't know. I don't remember if I heard a ding from the elevator." Shortly afterwards, she sees Jennifer hang the red "Do Not Disturb" sign on her door. At some point, Jennifer must have left her room, because at 11:03 a.m., she or someone else enters using the keycard. From that point, she could not have left the room and returned without inserting her keycard, unless someone was inside and let her in. The same evening, Friday, at then knocked on the door across the corridor, and Jennifer opened the door. Kristen said, "What I remember most is that I got such a big tip. She had a 50 krona note ready. It was very unusual for us to get so much of a tip. If we got 10 krona, we thought it was a lot. She was not interested in small talk. I remember it was easy to put the food on the table because there was nothing on it. The room seemed almost sterile." The next evening, when Jennifer was found dead, the plate of food was half eaten. In the autopsy, 50 milliliters of food, including sausage, was found in her stomach and had undergone very little digestion. If the food had been eaten on Friday night, it would have long since been digested. The autopsy declared Saturday night as the time of death, so she must have eaten the food the same day she died, almost 24 hours after its delivery to the room. This raises the question, why would she wait so long to eat her food, especially since there is no record of the keycard being used again? And wouldn't the sausage have gone bad by the next day? Ultimately, the police was led to conclude it is suicide, in particular the double-locked door with both keycards inside the room, the silence noted by the security guard right after the shot, the lack of any sign of struggle in the room, and the lack of any other injury to the victim. There was nothing to suggest a struggle in the room, says former forensic technician Bjorn Davin, who investigated the scene. The furniture was in place, the bottles and glasses were upright, nothing was broken, and the body was clothed in a natural way. In regards to finding no gunshot residue on the hand, he said, "Sometimes we find residue, sometimes we don't." He says, "You can't see the particles with the naked eye. The test kit we used is a tiny vial with adhesive at the end, which you push down on a victim's hand. Maybe we picked the wrong spot, but nothing was found in the electron microscope examination." A forensic expert, Dr. Karger, backed this up by saying, "We've seen cases where there should be gunshot residue, but it's impossible to find. Lack of gunshot residue is therefore not by itself proof a suicide did not occur, but it is something that should be treated as a problem in the investigation. If, like me, you were wondering about if there was any CCTV footage, unfortunately I couldn't find any information on that. Even though this was a top hotel in Norway, it was still 1995 before CCTV became commonplace in the Nordic countries. If there was, it could be that police were focused on the suicide theory and did not check footage. By the time they were questioning foul play, the tapes would have been overwritten. In the police reports, there is also nothing to indicate the bedding was examined for DNA or hair. In fact, a few hours after the woman's death, the bed and bedclothes were discarded. This was the timeline after police arrived at about 8:30 p.m. At 2:40 a.m., the body was taken away in a hearse. At 4:10 a.m., the mattress and bed were removed from the room. At 5 a.m., the police were finished, and the room was released back to the hotel. We do have a little information on the guests who were staying in nearby rooms. In room 2818 was Borghild Strandines. She actually called Oslo police 6 days later to say that a foreign couple had caught her attention while at the hotel. Unfortunately, the police never contacted her. In room 2816, the guest is unknown, but in Jennifer's room a plastic bag was found with an issue of USA Today inside. That bag was marked 2816, where an unidentified fingerprint was found. And in room 2804, directly across was questioned how the desk staff could have asked him about the death before it even occurred, Mr. F replied, "I don't know anything about that. I just remember they asked me. That's all I know." There is a theory that Jennifer was an undercover spy that was compromised. Apparently the removal of the clothing tags is something that is done in that kind of situation. The family would then have been paid off and told to keep quiet, which is why no one ever came forward saying they knew Jennifer. On the other hand, that could be because police did not release a photo of Jennifer, only a sketch. This is a photo of a woman who looked very similar to Jennifer, but apparently a lot of women at the time had a similar look, which doesn't help. Sadly, it was a lonely burial that nobody attended because nobody knew who she was. Jennifer lays in an unmarked grave in Oslo.